Over here, you were next.
Jeannie, did
you have a question?
I get the impression that things are hopeless. I'm so glad that I'm so old and I don't have to live in Connecticut too much longer. But is it the urban Democrats who are selling us down the river? And you might say in public, Gene, you've got to be more discreet than that. But I don't get it. I don't know the numbers.
That's where they're hurting the most. They're
What?
hurting the most in our cities. Our cities are hurting the most. Their unemployment rate, especially amongst the young, is in the teens, 13 to 16%. They're the ones that desperately need more jobs. And so by changing our economic policies that allow businesses to thrive here or want to be here will help those at the very bottom. It helps them with a job, and it also helps them get the kind of valuable services that are deteriorating right now with regards to the safety net, with regards to food stamps and rental assistance programs, services for the disabled. So really, our message is that we're not there to cut and burn and hurt. We're there to repair and build and provide those services necessary for the truly needy people. And that is to take a look at what's really being wasted and really, I think, being dealt with irresponsibly. And I think that there is hope for improvement. Right now, the rank and file people throughout the state are very unhappy, and they're looking forward to a change in leadership.
And you know, to flesh out a little more your question, you know, are they selling us down the river? No, there are folks, inner city Democrats, if that's what you want to call it, you know, whatever. The folks who disagree with the three of us on most of this stuff. You know, I take them at their word that they mean to do what they want to do the right thing, and they're trying to do the right thing. Yeah, they're trying to do the right thing by their district.
They're just wrong.
Yeah, they're just wrong. Their approach is all right. If we take more from these guys over here and give it to these guys over here, well, that'll make everything better. Well, what happens is when you take from these guys over here and give it to these guys over here leave, and these guys over here are the guys making the jobs and the businesses and investments and you know, and so it's a self-defeating.
My feeling is, and I got to put my 2 cents in on this because it's important to me. I stood on the House a couple of years ago on the floor, and I was talking about some of the businesses that were leaving our area. And one of the guys says, on the other side of the aisle, on the floor, he says those same people who've been talking about leaving the state have been saying that for years, and they're still here.
Yeah, he did say that.
Now, the impact of that and why that is so important is I honestly feel and think that many of the Democrats who serve in this state legislature don't believe they have as much impact on the economy as they really do. I think they feel the economy's just going to come back, it's going to lumber along, and then everything's going to be fat, dumb, and happy. When I look at it much differently, I see a state that is broken. It's never hopeless, but it's broken, and we are on the ropes. There's no question about it, and we have to have some smart policies. For instance, you know, why not in our food stamps program, our SNAP program, why aren't we requiring people to get a job or be actively looking for work? We don't do that. We have a waiver from the federal government.
It's crazy talk, Dan.
So until we look at our basic philosophy about how we provide these services, and like Senator Boucher said, make sure they're going to our neediest people, and the other people we're helping them up. We're not giving anything out. And until we get that philosophy down in this state, we're going to keep floundering. But I'll tell you, I do believe that there's a possibility for a change. People are getting it. It could change.
Yes, we have a question right here.
Last year, I had the opportunity to help Wayne Winsley in the 3rd Congressional District. I latched on his campaign the end of July, and I was sort of like a senior advisor right up to Election Day. And on Election Day, I took it upon myself to take a Wayne Winsley yard sign to every voting place in New Haven. That was my job that day. I got through 19 before it got dark. At every single place, I went to put the sign down, and there were no Wayne Winsley for Congress signs. Every person there said, gee, that's a good-looking guy. What's he running for? I said, he's running for Congress. Oh, what party is he running in? They didn't, that indicated to me they didn't know who Rosa DeLauro was, or they didn't care. It was just a strict party vote. So when I stuck it in the ground and I said he's a Republican, every single person, and they were all minorities, they took a step back from me like I had the plague. The Republican label has to be fixed to get into the cities.
Absolutely.
Wayne is doing a program called Brave Enough to Fail. You probably know about it. I videoed a couple of his events. He's getting right into the freshman and sophomore classes in high schools in the inner cities, and he's getting a lot of feedback. He's getting a lot of people on his newsletter, but he's hanging out there with no funding. He needs funding to get in there. He can bring in 10 or 20,000 votes over 5 years, I think. Getting the Republican principle into the inner cities, but Republicans have neglected that.
Well, you know what, you have hit the nail on the head. I think we need to remind people that Martin Luther King, this will shock them, was a Republican, a registered Republican, and the party, this was the party that fought in 1964 for the Civil Rights Bill that Democrats tried to filibuster, install, and tried to destroy.
But
and so this change and this framing of a party in such a negative fashion is a concern. There's no question. So we have to be able to deliver the message that needs to be delivered and help him as well, and help those minorities who, by the way, because they have been in the party, have been attacked by the Democratic side for that, and it's not been easy for them to be able to stick their necks out.
Well, Martin Luther King was 50 years ago. We're talking about in the last 10 or 15 years, and it gets worse every year.
Well, we have to change that.
We have to change that. You guys.
And it's also about the messenger and being able to connect and to be able to explain and to be able to explain and connect that, because you have to understand where they've been and at least try to discuss this with them in a way that they feel that you understand and that you're not going to pull everything out from under everyone. It's very important. Look,
Jody Rell got 701,000 votes, the greatest vote-gathering Republican candidate in Connecticut history, and she's a Republican.
Yes, and they didn't know she was a Republican. I would talk to taxi cab drivers, that Afro-American minority taxi driver that did not know what party she was. All they knew is that they really liked her. And it was her way and her manner and her ability to speak with people and connecting with them and not going to war with them. That's not the point. The point is to bring people together and to be able to find common ground. We may be very different. I could sit across, and I've done a lot of negotiating of teachers' contracts, custodial contracts over the years. You have to sit there and you have to find a place where you are going to disagree vastly on certain things, but you work to find what you do agree with and bring ourselves to a consensus so that we can move an agenda, a policy that suits all sides forward. Okay, and that doesn't mean getting every single thing you want on either side, but
it's funny because there's more of that actually goes up in Hartford than a lot of people realize. I mean, I think we tend to agree at 70 or almost 80% of the votes, and a lot of that's collaboration. So there's a lot more collaboration. You know, people say, "Oh, we're so tired of politics," and I understand why, because the media tends to grab onto the hot button issues, and you get some yahoos yelling at each other on channel, whatever. In Hartford, we agree on almost 80% of the policies and compromise on almost 80%. Even though we're in the minority, we're able to compromise on a lot. It's the stuff that these are fiscal issues is where we're getting frozen out. The big issues.
Fiscal issues, voting issues.
But it's also respect. How you treat with people. I don't believe this administration is respectful to its public or listens to them. They don't certainly listen to the other side that represents 1 million people in the state. With a different point of view. But even those constituents that are normally theirs and normally loyal, there's been no respect to sit down and to actually move their agenda forward together with that group. It's been very antagonistic, and it hasn't been very transparent, and it's always a blame game on somebody else. One has to stop. If you're in leadership, you stop blaming everyone else. You take ownership and responsibility for moving your plan forward, and that plan is usually the blueprint of what you want is your 2-year